I can't believe that Geraint Thomas can be bothered to do this, to be honest.
Welcome back to Spin Cycle, Dane Cash.
Hey, Kelly. How are you?
I'm doing well. And Johnny Long, welcome back.
Hello. No anthems at the start of this podcast. You missed that, Dane. We played the British national anthem to celebrate Simon Philip Yates on Monday.
Yes. My country 'tis of thee, as we would call it.
Is that what That's your... Is that what you call your
Yeah,
one?
we just took it. I think it was sometime in the 1800s. We just took it and wrote new lyrics.
I see what you mean.
Same tune. Yeah.
Well, we got a lot to talk about today, gentlemen, because the Dauphiné kicks off over the weekend, and the Dauphiné is actually going to be a mano battle.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
3 monos.
Sounds
Trace
right.
monos.
And for the first time. I mean, not like ever, but this year.
Yeah. First time this year, we're going to get, Vingegaard, Pogačar, and Evenepoel in the same stage race. I think I mentioned previously that at least one of them, actually, no, Evenepoel's already done it. He's already said, I don't want to win. I don't want to win this Dauphiné. Despite the fact that his coach also said, hey, but he's actually riding better than I've seen him ride in a very long time. His lead up to this Tour de France is nearly perfect. Anyway, we'll get to the Dauphiné later in the show. We have a couple things we wanted to kick off with. The biggest of which is that Dave Brailsford is coming back to cycling. Now, anybody who has arrived to professional cycling in the last, 2 or 3 years? Since 2021, I think, really. You may not sort of fully comprehend what Dave Brailsford is in cycling, or I guess what he did, or whatever. But he is coming back. He is the man who kind of led, sort of. He's the man that kind of led Team Sky to its dominance across much of the 2010s, the Wiggins era, the Froome era, etc. And then he got shuffled over to the various football projects of Ineos. But they're making a bunch of changes over at Manchester United, and he's getting shuffled, it looks like, back in our direction. Is this good for the cycling team?
Well, probably. I would say he got sort of sucked up the Ineos organisation into what was definitely a big promotion, where he became Ineos Director of Sport, and then when Jim Ratcliffe bought Man United, got a little number in there, which perfect. There's so many other when you're in a football club, there's so many other people that can get fired before you for if things go badly. That's always what you want. But now Brailsford has helped to sort of install the new executive team. I think there's lots of politics and hirings and firings going on over Man United and whatnot. But now that team is supposed. This is what has been said in the article by The Athletic, which is written in a way where it's kind of like they haven't. It's been written in quite a positive light, where it's like how much of this is what's going on, because obviously that club's in dire straits.
Yep.
But what's clear is that Brailsford is no longer going to be in his day-to-day role at Man United, where he was at the training ground helping figure everything out, even though nothing seems figured out. But now he's coming back as Ineos Director of Sport and overseeing, I guess, all of Ineos' sporting things, of which there are fewer than when he had that role before.
Yeah.
So the expectation is that he will be focused more on the cycling team, especially with a view to Geraint Thomas being propelled into management when he retires into this year, as first reported by Escape Collective in March. Just saying.
We did, by Chris Marshall-Bell. Thank you, Chris. Do we...
But yes, it's good for the cycling team. That was your actual question.
Yeah, that was my actual question.
Sorry. Jesus Christ, sorry. I thought, we've got to tell the story before we analyze
No,
it.
the context is important. We can't just,
Context is important, and the context in terms of what this means for the cycling team is that when we did the Skyfall investigation into the decline of the team at the end of last year, a number of the people we spoke to were like, the only way they could see it all being turned around is if Brailsford comes back, because you need that sort of, I guess in a way, talismanic leader who's going to come in a bit Jordan Belforty, thumping the chest with the microphone, shouting at the other day traders how you're gonna be on top again and everything's gonna be fine. And I mean, Brailsford always kind of seems to know how to pick his moments and slide in right directions, because the cycling team actually seems to be on the up.
Yep.
And you'd presume that Jim Ratcliffe wants him there if they're doing this sort of assimilation with Total Energies, and maybe there's going to have to be some wrangling with the Total Energies boss for who actually has control. And you know that Brailsford is going to management speak this French guy Bernardo into a little British box. That's what you can guarantee.
Well, and he can even do it in French, actually.
Exactly.
Brailsford's fluent. He's fluent in French. I think it's good for the team. I think it makes me much more interested in the team going forward because,
Yes.
and I'm particularly interested in how they then fold in Geraint Thomas into this management role that is at the moment ill-defined. And we've talked previously about how, because I think I mentioned on this podcast that when Chris Marshall-Bell first brought us that information, he had heard, and this is before we were publishing anything, because it wasn't like fully confirmed. He had heard that Geraint was going to be the CEO of the cycling team, which I think I said at the time was completely absurd, which is why we sent Chris back out to continue reporting that, and then it turned out that he's not going to be the CEO. But where is he going to fit in? Like, where does Geraint Thomas fit in with a Brailsford-led cycling team? Because the cycling team is still his original love, right? Brailsford loves bikes, riding bikes. You see him
Confirmed.
Riding like start to finish at the Tour de France, with a team car behind him. He's an actual cyclist, right? That's where he started. So I would imagine that even if he's technically sort of director of sport, the cycling team's going to probably be his primary focus and at least the thing that he wants, like personally, to get back off the ground. How does that work with Geraint Thomas? Like, where does Geraint Thomas fit in that?
I mean, there's always, first of all, in cycling, there's no like set rules of who plays what role. Like, you can just be. You could just add anybody to your staff and give them a title in cycling. That's fine. I mean, you can do that in most places, but particularly in cycling, you could just throw someone in there suddenly head of 21st century performance optics. Like, okay, great. Yeah, sure, that whatever the hell that is. So they can make a job for Geraint Thomas. And I do think particularly with Geraint Thomas, I would imagine he'd be some sort of like something in the head sports director type realm is what I'm thinking. Or, director of racing. I know they already have somebody in a similar role. I think Scott Dror is their performance director, but you can have a performance director and a director of racing or something like that.
You can have a performance director and a director of performance at the same time if you really want to.
They're solved. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sold.
I can't believe that Geraint Thomas can be bothered to do this, to be honest. Like, he's definitely made enough money.
Yep.
He's sort of built himself his media career already that sort of retiring athletes sometimes kind of want.
Yeah, his little podcast.
So still can't believe you said that. But I just can't. He never strikes you as a guy who relishes the internal politics of his work or of jobs. And management, especially in sporting teams, is basically all politics. No, from what I've been able to gather. So especially this one. The man I'm most fearful for though is John Allott, who was installed as the CEO last year and was coming out with all of the Brailsford light things, like how the team were now seeking maximal gains. But unfortunately, the original like management speak guy in Dave Brailsford is back. Because a lot of people won't remember that before we had, the Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO podcast and everyone like drinking Huel and all this kind of that whole bullshit performance manosphere stuff. Brailsford and a few of the performance guys he worked with, they were the ones who started this whole thing off.
Oh yeah.
So this is a real redux of some mid 2010s, I don't know, vibes, but I'm excited for it. I can't wait to hold my phone out to record Dave Brailsford interview and then think it's interesting. Then when you listen back and realize he actually managed to say nothing of substance while also sounding interesting. It's a skill that is possibly the only skill you need in the era of bullshit jobs.
At a strategic level, I think Geraint Thomas's core mandate is going to be to operationalize high-performance outputs by leveraging a synergistic blend of data analytics, marginal gains, methodology, and holistic athlete development. There are. If you dig deep enough, there are quotes that sound exactly like that.
You know what? Actually, on a serious note, you know what I can see Geraint doing is sort of maybe starting to step into the Nico Portal role.
Yeah.
Where that's definitely been lacking since he sadly passed away. Where it's like amidst all of the, the big hulking, expensive carcass and unfeeling machines and data, you have this guy who can put an arm around the shoulder.
He's the heart
and
of the
speak
thing.
to you like a human, and is the heart of the thing.
Yep.
And with so many brave British boys coming up, we're going to need that.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. I think that is exactly where he ends up. I think that is his greatest skill. You know, if you are using the management speak, he's got, you know, exceptional emotional intelligence, right? Like he understands the riders around him. He understands where they've been, what they're going through.
He's done it. He can
He's
stand up
done
and be
it.
like, you know, I've won the Tour. So.
And so therefore has the respect of all of them. I think it's a thing that has been missing from that team. Interestingly, a lot of teams are stepping away from roles like that. Like if we go to sort of one of the other topics of this spring, that was very much a Matt White role. He had kind of moved up the chain to the point where maybe he'd been pulled out of that somewhat, and maybe that was his downfall. But you know, that was riders on that team always described him in that way as not only the boss, but also somebody who understood where they were coming from and what they'd been through. And I think it's pretty reasonable to expect that Geraint ends up there. Should we pop over to Netflix? So, Wednesday, the Netflix France released the trailer for Unchained Season 3. This is going to be the third and last season of Unchained, because they're not going to be recording at this summer's tour. And, of course, the Unchained is always about last year's tour. The kind of annoying thing for us in particular is that they're dropping it really, really late. They're dropping it on July 2nd is the day that we will get to watch this. We always make our Unchained binge podcast, and that's going to be extremely difficult to do with about 3 days between that and the Tour de France. I think probably just not going to happen until August, to be honest. But what are we expecting out of Unchained this year? We've got a bit of a trailer. It seems to continue to paint Pogačar as a bit of the bad guy, I think.
I think we've got a little bit of this going on where it's like, okay, Vingegaard's good, Pogačar's bad, Pogačar's good, Vingegaard's bad. And then this year it seems like they're really ramping up. I mean, at least from the trailer, we're getting a lot of the classic money is running everything in cycling, and Pogačar's face shows up after you see, UAE's wealth displayed. So yeah, they seem to be leaning into that arc now.
There's
go on.
There's a screenshot that one of my friends sent me from that trailer. That's just Tadej Pogačar saying, "Now we're gonna have to hit the explicit button. Let's fuck things up." In the middle of the trailer. So I think that is an indication of like the kind of character that they're going to start portraying him as.
The thing that typified the whole sort of made to try and bump French subscriptions to Netflix, yet going out internationally, was summed up by the trailer being released by Netflix France in French, and then all the teams posting their own versions of the video, which was the English translation. But I didn't really see a Netflix account do the English version of the trailer. And it was just like, this just sums up the whole fumbling of this whole project, which is sad because it was at times good, at times not so good. But on balance, it gave us the Pidcock Cummings saga, for which I think you can underline it as that was a net positive for cycling media and sort of narrative storylines and just intrigue.
Well,
but
I know that there are people that listen to this podcast that found us via that Unchained podcast, right? Like there are people that have come into the sport because of it. I don't think it was never gonna be what Drive to Survive was, because it didn't happen in the middle of COVID. But I think as in general a net positive on cycling the last couple of years. I'm bummed that it's done.
Same.
I would have preferred it kept going.
Yeah, same. And it's one of those things where, like, I think someone commented this on a piece I wrote or told in Discord, so I can't remember who it was, but they seem to suggest that the way that Netflix operates is that they ordered 3 series to start off with, and then part of the commissioning process means to get it all recommissioned means putting it out for tender again, and often there are massive bonuses and stuff put in if you manage to get if the series proves so popular that then it gets re-upped, and so it becomes that much more expensive, that not as profitable. It's not a huge hit, so then why direct all your resources, or a lot of resources, to continuing with this show when you could try and find the next, I don't know, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives or whatever, and and logistically much easier to bumble around Utah filming women drinking massive sodas than cover the Tour de France.
Do you watch the show, Johnny? Seems like
I
you
have started watching it. It's nuts. I've been learning a lot, Dane. But we'll save it for after dark.
I live like an hour and a half from Utah. Let's go pop over, say hi.
I did check a map and
Yeah.
I was like, oh Christ, yeah. But yes, Netflix.
Oh Christ, yeah, literally, yeah. You know who showed up at my door yesterday?
Elder Price.
2 young Mormon gentlemen.
It was.
to talk to me about
Well,
God knows
That's
what.
unreal.
you can get that anywhere.
God
in the
does know
United
what.
States.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have them in the UK as well.
Yeah,
Unis, they like going to. I think they like going to Edinburgh Uni. Anyway,
think
we're
they-
getting sidetracked.
they're
We'll
targeting
save it
me
for
with
after
my
that.
small children so we can repopulate or something like that. Yeah,
Oh. Nice.
we're on a bit of a tangent there.
Yeah, Netflix. What? And also, sorry, yeah, it's hard to releasing it so close to the tour. Just seems it's again this whole thing of how it's all algorithm, right? It's all big company and feeling like they don't care about how people have watched it in the past. It's like, okay, we'll try and see. Maybe it's another scheduling thing. Maybe it's they want that to be their blockbuster now. Oh, there's nothing for July. Maybe it will help because people start watching it as the Tour de France starts, and then obviously in the evenings when the stage is over, or for Americans when
Maybe-
it's lunchtime, then you chuck that on.
Maybe
They're
they
watching
have
2 Tour de
data.
France concurrently.
Maybe they have data that everyone binges it in 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but it's I think it literally I think it's a heightened thing because we care about having it in time. But I feel like everyone did enjoy watching it 3 weeks before over like the span of a week.
Yeah.
Getting pumped for the tour, reminding themselves, and then having like 10 days to wait until the race started. That's always seemed to make the most sense.
I've sent about 15 emails off trying to get an early media screener and haven't received anything back, including to the folks. Remember how we're going to be in there, we think.
Hopefully.
This podcast, we think, is going to be in one of the episodes. I think it's going to be Kit saying that Cavendish can't get 35. So we're about to be wrong.
Maybe that's why they got blocked.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
yeah.
anybody out there can get me a screener of this thing. Do you work for Netflix? Send me an email.
Yeah.
editor@escapecollective.com. Like genuinely, otherwise I don't think we're going to be able to do that podcast. We're going to be on the ground in France. There's no way. There's no way.
Too much to do in Lille,
Yeah.
So many sights to see.
So many sights to see.
But yeah, it is really sad because definitely I had like pals or like friends of friends you meet out who would have watched it, learn what you do, and then be like, oh yeah, that was actually interesting. And they'd know a bit about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly they were just like telling me how fit Thibaut Pinot was. But that's good, If we have to grow the game through Thibaut Pinot's handsomeness, I'm all down for it. But it's just sad, It was a connection to the outside world that made cycling seem a bit more normal, and explained it and put a bit of glitz and glam on it, which I think we could sometimes do with.
Yeah, authenticity isn't the right word. What's the what's the word I'm looking for? Credibility. It gives it like
Yes.
pop culture credibility,
yeah.
like broader
Yeah.
culture credibility. And yeah, that was cool. It was cool to see. It was just cool to see cycling on Netflix.
It's just a
Like-
shame that it had to be so French. Like,
Yeah.
make it international. Make it,
I mean,
And I feel like the vibe was slightly off where they lean so hard on this thing, the race is so hard. Like, yeah, it's hard, and I think you can incorporate that, but like even me, I sometimes struggle to fathom how difficult those like riding the Tour is, even though you're there every day. To a regular person,
yeah.
you can't imagine what riding up the Glibby is like when you've never seen it, you've never been there. You don't even get to see the whole of the climb unless
Yeah.
you're in the race. So I feel like they could have done a bit more to,
That said, based on the trailer alone, we are in for a Mark Matteo month.
yeah.
And
Complaining.
maybe if the folks making this show, if they knew 8-9 months ago that it wasn't going to get renewed, and they're it's French Netflix, and they're like, fine, then we're going all in. We're going all in on Mark Matteo this time. So maybe we're just going to get 8 episodes of Mark Matteo, which in that case, I'm all for it.
I wonder
think
what
it'll be
Vortex is going to
fantastic.
get up to this time around. That's what I'm looking for.
We will have to, as always, we will make these podcasts eventually. We'll just might have to do it in August.
The
we
size
will-
of Wout van Aert's Kitchen Island.
We will talk about
There's so
Wout van Aert's
many-
Kitchen Island.
so many
We
things.
will award the awards for
Hmm.
most best understanding of the assignment, etc. We'll get there. I think now, I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk Dauphiné and what's going to happen this weekend. Welcome back, everybody. Dane Cash, tell me about the Dauphiné.
Well, yeah, like we sort of already hinted at, we finally get this great showdown. Vingegaard, Pogačar, Evenepoel. Hopefully it's a great
showdown. It's going to be an okay showdown.
Yeah.
Like I said, they have too many excuses right now.
There is that, yeah. And they're the interest level. I mean, I think we're back at like late Lance. I mean, I guess all Lance years where the guys who really care about the Tour de France at this point, they no longer really care that much about anything up to the Tour de France. Pogačar does. I shouldn't take that away from Pogačar. Pogačar does.
But he doesn't care about the Dauphiné.
Vingegaard got hurt at Paris-Nice, and we haven't seen him since, right?
Yeah.
And so
he did have a concussion. That's legit.
Sure.
I don't want
to downplay that, but he also probably could have come back and raced something like, I don't know, the Tour of Slovenia or whatever. Well, he can't race.
That would have been very funny. Is if Pogačar didn't go to Tour of Slovenia and then Vingegaard went to the Tour of Slovenia and won it.
That's what he should have done.
Yeah,
that's what he should have done.
What a move!
Also, there would
be
overlap. He couldn't do the Slovenia because that's like going on right now. Anyway, because of this, we haven't seen them racing each other so far this year. It's all the way into June when we finally get this showdown. And yeah, they're probably all going to say, except maybe Pogačar. I doubt Pogačar will say this, but Vingegaard and Evenepoel might say, we don't care about this. Something tells me Pogačar has this desire to win every single bike race he enters, and so I don't think we're going to hear that from him. But in addition to the fact that we get this good showdown, we hope, the course is pretty conducive to giving us like a Grand Tour preview. I mean, that's what you want out of your Dauphiné. You want the Dauphiné to give you a Grand Tour preview, and this Dauphiné has a medium-length time trial, at least medium length for a 1 week stage race, and some hard mountain stages, particularly that stage 7. There's like several climbs that go up to 1,800 meters or higher, and hopefully that will give us a chance to see all that we need to see here in June as we gear up for the Tour de France.
I don't think I could be any less interested in something other than a Dauphiné time trial.
I see.
You know what I mean? It's just like...
What about like a UAE Tour time trial?
That I don't mind that so much because you get the cool photos of them going underneath the bridges that maybe probably slaves built, modern slaves.
Oh, and you want
that?
You're saying. Okay, yeah.
I'm saying that it's at least it stirs up emotions, good and bad.
I see. Yeah.
Whereas Dauphiné time trial, like are they trying? Like the what makes time trial interesting if you're not Ronan McLaughlin is peril. And there is zero peril in a Dauphiné time trial for me.
It's funny. I feel like the Dauphiné, despite being like one of the biggest stage races, it's maybe the biggest 1 week stage race because we put all this hype on it ahead of the Tour de France. And at the same time, it's probably one that is cared about by riders maybe a little bit less than Catalunya.
I'm not sure that it's cared about less. I'm just it's proximity to everyone's major goal. Means that like winning the Dauphiné is a big deal, particularly if you're like a second tier GC contender. Think about all the guys, all the guys that have won this who are never going to win a Tour de France, but have a chance of winning a Dauphiné. For them, it's a big deal. For everybody that might win a Tour, like you have to be good. You have to be pretty good at the Dauphiné. I mean, even if you're not at your absolute Tour form, it's not that far out from the Tour. Like you're not going to get a bunch more percent on top in the 2 weeks in between the Dauphiné and the start of the Tour de France. So it is important.
Yeah. We can talk about the big three who will be riding it and contender stuff. Maybe to fold into that. That's the best thing about the Dauphiné is you have these second tier GC guys who win the Dauphiné, and suddenly there's the hype of could they maybe do something at the Tour? And invariably the answer is usually kind of no. Like remember you got your 2019 Jakob Fuglsang is the prime example of that. Even the Danny Martinez in 2020 when he sort of nicked on the last day, that was maybe a bit of a weird one. It was a COVID one, but yeah, like Richie Porte 2021, Primož Roglič 2022. These are all guys who in hindsight, you should just bet the farm against them winning the Tour as soon as they,
Well, we should point out, if you're going to bring those names up, and we should point out that like the guys who won the Tour de France for most of the 2010s, like Froome won the Dauphiné a lot.
But it switched, didn't it? Yeah.
So there was a stretch where winning the Dauphiné meant you were going to win the Tour de France.
Well, there's a difference. So for the second tier guys, they win it because the top GC contenders are 5% off. And for Froome, he wins it because even at 5% off, he's still the best bike racer.
That's a
in Richie
positive
Porte's
spin on
case,
it.
I think, I don't know, I will always think that Richie Porte was good enough to win a Grand Tour, but in terms of like metrics, but at the end of the day, he kind of Roglic'd more than Roglic somehow, like a lot more even, because Roglic has won like 5 Grand Tours, right? So,
Well, most of them have Vueltas, aren't they?
how dare you?
Yeah.
He has won a Giro, which even Porte can't say that, and but I do think that Porte had the talent for it, and that's why he would win the race like the Dauphiné.
Do you think it just is less important because they now understand the importance and how to do altitude camps properly? So the Dauphiné becomes more of a testing things out, seeing where you're at, getting your bearings, and then you have your pre and post Dauphiné altitude camp where it's like, right, I'm filling myself up to 100% and making sure I'm ready to go.
I think that is. I think they've sort of understood that for quite a while, though. But I do think, but that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, I think there's riders who sort of target, in a way, they target the Catalunya or the Basque Country as like an early season goal. I don't know of anybody who targets. I mean, okay, other than Romain Bardet, who's gonna retire, nobody targets the Dauphiné.
I'd
right?
love him to win it.
Whereas you would say, I want to win Catalunya in spring, and then I'll take some time off and I'll come back and try to win the Tour de France. And like the Dauphiné is just sort of like it's there. You're gonna do it.
I need like a Bardet or Danny Martinez type character to come out and do a Simon Yates like my rivals at Dauphiné are going to be shitting themselves. That's how good I'm going. Like
Enric
need someone
Mas,
to just
he'll
take
be
that
there.
man. Yeah, Enric Mas just to put the cat amongst pigeons.
I think somebody will. Somebody's targeting the Dauphiné. Who's targeting the Dauphiné?
Lenny Martinez,
Tadej
maybe.
Pogačar. Pogačar will be trying to do mind games against Jonas Vingegaard.
Yeah.
that's his main objective.
One of the best things about the Dauphiné is seeing like the main GC guys for the Tour not doing super well, and then knee-jerk reaction of like, they're done, they're off, they're washed, whatever. Sometimes it works. Like when we had that, do you remember that Ineos year where they all got dropped on literally the first bit of uphill road 2 or 3 years ago, which was insane.
That was good.
It was like Geraint Thomas, Chris Froome, and someone else all just dropped. I think some sprinters still in there, but.
Let's talk a little bit about the route, because this is a preview of the Dauphiné.
Yeah.
You mentioned briefly, Dane, that the sort of is backloaded, and it often is. It is obviously it's always in the same region of France. It's down the sort of eastern side over by the Alps, generally around sort of Annecy and Chambéry and that kind of area. The first 5 days are practice for getting through lumpy stages without falling down. That's really all they are. There's very little that's going to happen from a GC perspective in those stages.
On the bright side, though, and this is a bummer for Mr. Jonathan Milan, who I think is going to be at the race, there's like no flat days. So for us watching it, we don't have to sit there for like 5 hours watching absolutely nothing. There might be some sprints, but nothing that's like pancake flat. So that's good. Because the Tour is going to have that. The Tour is going to have some pancake flat days.
Not many though.
True, but there is that one we've just discussed where there's back-to-back, just like...
Yeah, that's going to be
but the Dauphiné is going to give us hilly days, so even the stage battles should be kind of interesting. And then, as usual with not just this race, Paris-Nice does this as well. I mean, the race, like, they really just... The tension goes like this over the course of the race. It's not like there's ever going to be a big day on the first or second day. They just like to really ramp things up in the last few days. That stage 7 is the really hard one, but 6, 7, 8 are all...
7 is insane.
7's really hard. 7 has 3 ore category climbs and literally climbs from the start line. It is just a very rude, extremely rude bicycle race that day. We got Col de la Madeleine, which is the first one, and then Croix de Fer, which is the second one, and then they finish up at Valminier 1800.
I've never been there. When was that last in the Tour? Was it? Has it been in the Tour?
Valminier? I don't think I have been to Valminier. They often use big climbs that they haven't used much before. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they've never used it, but I have not personally.
I don't remember.
I don't know that. I don't know it.
That's exciting.
But it is, it's 16.2 kilometers at 6.8%. I'm trying to read this. So the steepest one is the Col de la Madeleine, which is the first one, which is 7.8% for the last 5K.
Only that last stretch of the Madeleine.
Yeah, the last stretch of the Madeleine is kind of nasty. Croix de Fer is just a lovely climb, actually, if you're not racing it. But they will not be enjoying it probably very much. Anyway, that's a nasty, nasty, nasty one. That's the one where we're gonna see, hopefully, a Pogačar-Vingegaard battle, Evenepoel maybe, battle across that one. Stage 8 is then, it just climbs for 130 kilometers, which is really quite impressive. 128 and a half. Ends up at Col de Mont-Cenis, which is, I believe, right on the Italian border. I've driven over that. There's a big, beautiful lake up at the top. Going to be very, very scenic. Probably not as sort of purely brutal as Stage 7, but like I said, he basically climbs for 128K, so it's just going to be really, really hard. It's one of those days where if you looked at it at the Tour and it was like Stage 14 of the Tour, you would be very concerned for the continuation of the sprinters because it's kind of short, and so the amount of time they'd have to get across the line would be not much, and it's going to be on from very, very early on.
The looking at those first 4 road stages, they saying like no one targets the Dauphiné. They all seem tailor-made for like a Magnus Court. You know what I mean? Where he just gets out there, just eats shit for 4 hours in the break, and then sprints to the end.
And he'll be there.
And he'll be there. So I would not be surprised.
As
see him again. I feel we only see him for these like 2 months of the year.
Do we know? I mean, we're only a couple days out. Do we know if Mathieu van der Poel is going to be there? Because he has his wrist issue. It's been confirmed.
This breaking news.
Okay.
Breaking news.
As of a few hours ago, Alpecin has said that he is, quote, recovered sufficiently from his wrist injury to make the start, which is pretty, miraculous, I think was the word I saw on Cycling News. And I think that's a fair word to use. It was like 2 weeks ago he broke his wrist.
You know what's even more miraculous? Fabio Jakobsen apparently might be at the Tour de France this summer.
Really?
Despite his double narrow pelvic artery surgery.
Yeah.
He says there's a slight chance, or like there's a possibility that he could make it. Still less than 50%, but there's a possibility. Yeah. He also I was reading, he got his surgery done in Belgium rather than Netherlands, because in Belgium they don't mind doing both at once. Whereas in the Netherlands, they're like, it's probably a bit safer to do one and
I wonder
if
that was at Herentals, which is,
I bet. Herentals does seemingly magical things.
You know who I could see do something interesting at the Dauphiné? Our boy Matteo Jorgensen.
That's the perfect Dauphiné winner.
Yep.
Who then then you guys and Steve Perino are then just asking him every day, like, can you win the Tour, Matteo? And then he gives half an answer because he doesn't want to say no, because then that, just
well, relatively early in my cycling career, like, was this maybe the first year I was doing any writing? I can't remember what year I started. Andrew Talansky won the Dauphiné, and
another
it was
big Dauphiné
all hands on deck.
I was literally going to say that the best thing about Matteo Jorgensen winning the Dauphiné is we could stop talking about Andrew Talansky winning the Dauphiné.
That's a great point. Yeah, fair enough.
Matteo, do it for us. Do it for us, buddy.
Matteo seems like the sort of guy as well who would actually maybe really relish and target the Dauphiné. Like he's a bit of a purist, it seems. He's a bit of a hipster.
Yeah, well, and I think
in his own way.
And I think Matteo, I honestly think like if you gave Matteo like a Wiggins style tour, he'd be almost a genuine contender for like a podium at the Tour de France. But I think he's got to wait around. One, Vingegaard is a bit of an issue at the moment for him. Two, you just got to wait around for like a route that looks like that, and ASO hasn't done routes that look like that in ages. So
you guys keep dreaming. It's all,
we're gonna keep dreaming.
Good for the soul.
We're gonna keep the dream alive, and I think Jorgensen's gonna just fly across the mountains of France.
Yeah, being gifted a Vuelta wasn't enough for you guys. You now got to try and foist Matteo Jorgensen Tour winner upon us.
Sepp Kuss is also going to be there.
Oh, of course.
So
I feel like we haven't seen him in a while either.
He's pretty quiet.
I imagine he'll look the same.
Yeah.
Did you know that Matteo Jorgensen is from the same place as the drummer for Metallica, Lars Ulrich?
I did not.
There you go. There you go. Don't say we don't bring
Learn
you
something new every day.
I thought Lars Ulrich was Danish, and Matteo Jorgensen's name is, Scandinavian. I'm confused here.
Wow. I think he maybe lives in Walnut Creek, actually, looking at it.
Oh,
He's just
I
on the
see.
notable people.
Well, he can live in Walnut Creek. That's fine. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah,
This
The
is a weird
Dauphiné.
Dauphiné preview. It's because,
That's
you know
fine.
what? You know what's a weird one? It's because we haven't seen the Pogačar, Vingegaard, Evenepoel either together or on their own for quite a while.
for
So it's-
ages.
and they hide away. They don't really do much.
Yeah.
Although in the C block, we've talk C block in the next part of the show, we're going to talk about things they have been up to. But that's why you don't really know what's going to happen. They're going to look different. Are they going to? Can they still race their bike the same way? There's a lot of unknowns.
I'm on team Esteban Chavez wins the Dauphiné this year.
Based a bit on some of the stuff that we'll talk about in the next part of the show, I'm coming around. You know how we already had everyone's back in Pog over Vingegaard to win the Tour and come back. I'm now firmly in the camp of needing Vingegaard to come back with a vengeance and destroy Pogačar at this Tour de France. For a number of reasons,
It'd be really fun if we're talking about sort of narratives to come out of this Dauphiné. The most fun narrative to come out of this Dauphiné would be Pogačar getting dropped on stage
Vingegaard
7.
battering him by 6 minutes.
Yep. I think that would be exceptionally fun. Also, we forgot. I'm looking through the start list right now, so I'm gonna brief shout out to Casper Asgreen, who won that Giro stage.
Yeah.
Escape Collective member Casper Asgreen.
Yeah.
Well, we do need to shout out whenever any of our members win a Giro stage. We do need to make sure that we're shouting them out. So if you have won a Giro stage,
podcast.
I think he's more into Ronan's podcast.
He likes Ronan stuff.
But he is a fully paid up Escape Collective member, which really, if Casper can be a member,
Should we tell this story?
no.
After dark.
After dark,
maybe.
when we're in the trust tree, we'll tell the
Yeah.
Casper Asgreen story.
Okay.
Dana, are we missing anything else about this Dauphiné? We've got, again, to sum up, we've got a bunch of lumpy stages. We've got a time trial.
Yep.
What day is the time trial?
What's the stage?
Thursday.
Yeah.
Time trial's on Thursday. It is
Perfect Thursday stage.
17.4 kilometers.
Which
from,
in a week-long stage, I mean, that doesn't sound like much, but in a week-long stage race, you can't go too much more than that because
it would just
the time gaps.
Yeah, it would
it'll just
determine the
define the
whole
race.
thing.
Exactly.
It does have a lump in it. It has a 1.8 kilometer climb at 8.5%. So,
Which is actually, that's not nothing for 17.4K time trial.
Yeah, I mean, they come into it at like 60K an hour, right? So you're like halfway up before you even slow down. But still, it'll be an interesting one to watch. If nothing else, the other thing that we get out of the Dauphiné is we get all the sort of tech that they want to test in a race before the actual Tour de France. So Ronan will be keeping a close eye on all that sort of stuff. What socks are they wearing in time? Like whatever the things that they do, all the
What
things
if
that they do.
Vingegaard's still wearing his ankle socks?
If
Don't
Vingegaard is still wearing his
spoil
ankle
the
socks,
race.
it would be just a massive shift in our understanding of aerodynamics because as far as we know, the socks that they all run now are faster than legs, even shaved legs, even hairy legs.
The infamous incident from last year's Dauphiné was when Ineos Grenadiers tried to stopped Road CC, a British publication, from filming the bikes on top of their cars at the race because they were like new Pinarellos.
I don't
And then
remember.
Road CC had to talk about this car while looking at it with the hedge as the backdrop because they were being sort of bullied out of recording in public.
Which doesn't
Which
make
was-
any sense.
That was
Doesn't
the
make any
low.
sense.
I think that was a low point of relations.
If you put
Ineos.
a new bicycle in the Dauphiné, it is fair game.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
I
it
don't know
was
what you're.
great.
I don't know what you're doing at that point. Yeah, no, we'll keep. There'll be a bunch of new bikes. There's always a bunch of new bikes. There's always a bunch of new stuff. Like keeping an eye on that time trial. I think is interesting, not least for sort of where they end up results wise, because I don't really think you can extrapolate too much there. But yeah, new gear, things like that. We'll be keeping an eye on it. And then post time trial, we've got this sort of big last weekend, stage 7, stage 8. definitely worth tuning into. I mean, stage 7 is going to be, from everything we can see, a perfect sort of pre-test for all 3 of our major Tour de France contenders, and that is pretty exciting.
I've actually just discovered who is going to win the Dauphiné. Santiago Buitrago for Bahrain Victorious.
I literally, I was scrolling through and I was like, that is the guy. That's who does it. That's who does it.
Yeah.
Yep. Probably like maybe an
Can he win the
attack
Tour?
early. No.
Dane.
No, we
You got to
cannot
play the
win.
game. Come on.
Gotta play the game.
No, we cannot. Lenny Martinez winning the Dauphiné would be very fun, actually.
Well, yeah, that's who I pointed out as somebody who might actually target the Dauphiné, because like French rider might actually go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Great.
There you go. Dauphiné preview. Bit of a weird one. Are we missing any other names, Dane? We
No.
talked the GC names. There's not really many
no.
sprints.
Yeah.
There's not-
I mean, Milan is going to be there, I think, as of a few days out. Well, Bardet's big swan song. That's one of the big stories here. Bidding farewell to his career.
I can't believe he's not riding the Tour. That just seems wrong. What was the conversation there?
Well, maybe the team. I mean, it's Pictic, right? Like they have some ridiculous plan that is meticulously put together, and he's not in it. You know. Yeah.
The Carlos Rodriguez. We've not said a dicky bird about him.
Well, he's a Monster Energy rider, and I kind of want to keep it quiet and then just see him, watch him go win.
I
something.
think, if I had to be a little bit mean, I think he will manage to keep it quiet.
Ooh, that's Well, you probably would have thought the same about Simon Yates, another Monster Energy rider.
I
before
would
he
have.
went- before
I
he
would
went and
have.
won the Giro. So
Simon Philip Yates, put some respect on that name, please.
yeah, exactly.
Let's get to the next part of the show.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Jonas Vingegaard has hairy legs and very short socks.
The way you ended that last part, Kaylee, was like the weirdest game of Guess Who.
Who has been seen spotted riding around Annecy in the sort of edge of the Alps with no sleeves, very short socks, and hairy legs?
10 years ago, would it have been you?
Yeah. Although I don't think I would have done the short socks, but I might have rocked the gilet with no, the vest with no sleeves, kind of vibe that he's rocking. Yeah, Jonas Vingegaard was sort of spotted. There's a bunch of tour stages that are happening up in that part of the world, so they're never actually going to be in Annecy. Annecy.
That's a shame.
There's a start in Albertville, which is like a half hour around the lake, basically.
Classic.
And then that stage finishes in La Plagne, which is a big, nasty stage. So I think he's probably just staying down there and riding from there or near there. But regardless, he's cruising around the Alps. And it was less the fact that he was there, which is not the least bit surprising. He's doing recon for those last couple stages. Like I said, specifically, we're talking...
But they go to Teen as well, don't they? That's where
yeah,
they own a chalet or something there.
Yeah, so we're talking about stage 18, 19, and then 20 actually heads 20's up north of Geneva. So he's cruising around, and it was more the vibe that he was putting off, and the fact that so it's June, right? It's not the first time that we've seen a major GC contender roll around with hairy legs. Primož Roglič, quite famously, has done this at early season stage. Like I think he did at Paris-Nice. He rocked up to Paris-Nice with hairy legs.
Yeah.
Sagan at
Now-
some point, I think, as well.
Sagan has done a bunch of hairy-legged races. Hairy legs are a funny thing, right? Because cyclists do it. Doesn't make any goddamn sense, really. Let's be honest. They talk about it's for road rash, or it's for massages, or maybe it's even for aerodynamics. I think that's been tested in the wind tunnel. I couldn't tell you if it's faster or slower. Can't remember, but I think it's basically mostly irrelevant, to be honest. But we all do it as sort of like an indication of readiness, an indication of seriousness, an indication that you are there to do the job, to do the thing, right?
Okay.
And it's only a couple days. Well, do either of you disagree with me on this one? I mean, it's a part of cycling. Has been for decades and decades and decades. And we're at the beginning of June. and Vingegaard's rolling around. Didn't even bring a razor, right? Like to get hair that long, he hasn't shaved in maybe since he crashed at Paris. He's got the short socks. He looks like he's headed to an age group triathlon. Is what he looks like. Is exactly what he looks like. And I like it. I think the vibe he is putting off is I care so little about everything. Like the I care so little about like looking pro, looking like I'm about to go try to win the Tour de France, that I'm gonna just cruise around looking like this. I wrote a little story about this, which some of you might, by the time this goes up, you may have read. And it includes the horseshoe theory of flexing, which is that have you heard about the horseshoe theory of politics?
No, can you explain the horseshoe stuff?
So the horseshoe theory of politics is that the far left and the far right actually have more in common with each other than the center.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's a sort of well-established thing, right? Because they're both kind of yahoos. Yahoos on one side, yahoos on the other side. The thing they have in common is the yahoo-ness.
I can't believe we've become a centrist dad podcast. It was inevitable, but to actually speak it out loud, fine.
No, but like it's not me coming up with this anyway. It's a thing. So I'm applying this to flexing, to like intimidation, right? And I think that sort of aggressive intimidation and intimidation via nonchalance are actually closer to each other than the middle, which is sort of like the try-hard intimidation.
Yeah.
It's like you have actually intimidating over here, and you have just care so little that it's actually kind of scary. Like
people who try really hard to be cool and succeed, like in terms of their fashion, but then you have on the other people who don't try at all, then they're
also cool
sometimes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the horseshoe theory of
I love this
call
horseshoe
it flexing.
thing. This explains the whole world.
It explains the whole world when you really start to think about it. Anyways, I guess that's my point about the way that Vingegaard was sort of presenting himself. Again, like a couple days before the Dauphiné, he's about to go do the second biggest race he will do all year, and he's just sort of cruising around looking like a dad headed to an age group triathlon. And I genuinely think it's sort of like he has shed any earthly concern with aesthetics or a traditional notion of being intimidating, right? Because the traditional notion of being intimidating, if you're in his position, is looking, socks the right height, glistening legs, shaved.
I mean, he's always been a tree
all the
person,
things.
So it's hard to be intimidating, really. The only intimidating thing is when he goes up a mountain and you can't follow.
But that's what I mean. And the most intimidating thing he can do is to just
not care. Yeah, you're
not
right.
care.
Well,
so I loved it.
With your Pogacars and maybe your Evenepoels, there's other riders I think who they're out there trying to set those Strava KOMs. They want to instill fear in that way, and I think Vingegaard clearly doesn't care about that. Like Vingegaard cares less about that, apparently, based on what we're seeing, than I do. I will never set a Strava KOM, especially not in Boulder. I won't even be in like the top 50 on any segment I will ever ride. But
welcome to the club, yeah.
But I care, so I'm gonna wear slightly better fitting kit than Vingegaard is wearing. He doesn't care. He's just there for the training. He's only going to care at the Tour de France, and that's that horseshoe flex right there.
Mm-hmm. I just think there's no point in me caring, because the more is the horseshoe thing. 'Cause the more I care, I think the worse I would end up looking. You know what I mean?
Maybe I should think of it this way.
The thing is with Vingegaard, I feel like he does deeply care about winning the Tour de France, but I feel it's only for his own personal sense of accomplishment. Like I think there was it's in the Spin Cycle newsletter this week. Someone on Twitter dug up an Instagram post of his from April 2020 when he captioned it, "Just rode my ass off at the Tour de Suisse and finished third, and now I've come home and my parents-in-law have built me this new wooden bike garage." Like it's this super sweet Instagram post that obviously we don't see anymore because he's got millions of followers and he has to post about gels or whatever nonsense on his Instagram. So obviously that's taken out of his hands. But it just speaks to the Vingegaard that I reckon still exists deep inside, and all this other, bullshit about being a meme king or, shilling for Pizza Hut and making millions of euros is just completely superfluous to him just kind of just being really good at riding his bike and ending up in this life. You know, he's obviously worked hard to get where he is, but I feel like he gives off the vibe that he's doing. There's a real pureness to the reason he's doing it. Sort of what you get from Matteo Jorgensen and Casper Asgreen. Are you following me?
Yeah.
This is what I've been thinking about today, so I thought I'd just get it off my chest.
I think, well, and I think specifically this image of Vingegaard.
Yeah, exactly.
You see him like unpolished, and I think you can sort of see him better as a result. Because when we interact with him at the Tour de France, and he is in this bubble.
Yeah.
He's in this Visma bubble,
and he's in people asking him annoying questions.
And he's behind the Visma polish as well.
He's having to wear those stupid baseball caps.
Wearing a stupid baseball cap, doing all the things, getting taken care of. And what this photo is, and the reason why I like it, and I know we're talking a hell of a lot about just like a random photo on Instagram. But the reason why I like it is because I genuinely feel like I look at this photo and I know Jonas Vingegaard better.
You've learned more about him than every interview you've ever read.
And I appreciate him more than I did prior to seeing this image. And I actually I think you can draw a connection there between that and sort of the way that he needs to interact with fans. Like if I was his PR person, for example, I'd be like, this is the best thing you've done. This is this is the authentic Vingegaard. And I because in general, and you were alluding to this, Johnny, in general, I think most of particularly the English speaking fan base of pro cycling, the fan base that we interact with most often, is probably mostly in camp Pogačar. Right? For now. But I think things like this start to turn how the turntables turn.
Especially with Pogačar continuing to win. I think it helps.
Yeah.
Because you get this up and down where it's like at first Pogačar is the dominant rider and Vingegaard's just the, I don't know, plucky.
Yeah,
he's the fish guy, right?
Yeah.
And then he wins, and it's
sickly boy prince.
Pogačar's never going to win the Tour de France. And then you kind of lose a little bit of that humble fish guy. But now the Pogačar's back to winning everything. Yeah, these moments help, I think, a lot. Get people on Vingegaard's side.
I'll speak for the entire press corps. I think we're waiting for Pogačar to make one slip up, and then everyone's going to absolutely not go for him, but just like be ready to.
What do you mean by slip up?
Like
say the wrong thing, kind of thing.
Say the wrong thing. Do something too like rich boy. Act in the wrong way. I don't know. Just like everyone's waiting for an excuse to get on the Vingegaard train, and Vingegaard's given us that giving it to us currently. This is also dumb, by the way, but it's like this is part of the fun of because we don't have. Cycling fans, you don't have someone to root for, so you have to get behind narratives, kind of, and storylines. That's what we're supporting. And if I'll take us to the next part of the next story on the list of Pogačar. This isn't going to be the thing that brings him down, but Pogačar was spotted out doing a recon of the Stage 5 time trial course at the upcoming Tour de France, and in the week or so leading up to this, there'd been someone had dug up a Het Nieuwsblad interview from earlier in the season and put it alongside footage of Pogačar doing a time trial recon somewhere else and putting a jacket over his normal jersey that had the world champion jersey, because he's obviously not the time trial world champion. So this interview was dug up from Rune Herregots, who's his teammate, saying, the best thing about Pogačar is that he's just so deeply respectful of people like rivals like Remco Evenepoel, where he's not going to wear his world champion jersey while he's riding a time trial bike because that's not his to wear. Yada yada yada. A bit like stick your fingers down the back of your throat. It's a bit like the handshake for me, right? It's just too lovey-dovey. This sport is so the respect between champions. Like, give me a break.
Johnny's Lance today. I'm surprised by this.
And
I didn't like the handshake either.
No, we were straight on that. And to be fair, Vingegaard did the same as well a bit this week, where he was talking about how he loves having Pogačar as a rival. It's like, yeah, fine, whatever. Like, just miss me with that. But then, video came out. Sorry, it's a bit long-winded. Video came out of Pogačar on the Stage 5 time trial course, and it was absolutely pissing it down. and he had a rain jacket on, and he must have only had his world champion's rain jacket with him because he was wearing the rainbow bands on a time trial bike.
Yeah.
So rude. I mean, obviously it doesn't matter, but
what's really clear from that story is that he has zero respect for Remco Evenepoel.
Yeah, the disrespect. Yeah.
The disrespect.
God, that was a long story. Sorry, but
The disrespect is it's frankly shocking. It's frankly shocking.
Look, I just think
I'm putting the Sports Talk Radio on for a second.
He's a three-time yellow jersey. He's a world champion. You know, he's been around the block now. He should know how cycling works and what to do and what not to do.
Come on. Imagine if we were a proper Sports Talk Radio show. We could spend a half an hour on.
We'd take callers.
Rage.
Too. Like
they probably are. If they might be doing it in Belgium. You never know.
Yeah.
Oh, they're for sure doing it in Belgium.
Joe from Herentals calling in.
He's like, yeah, just nipped back from the hospital. Got a double shift today, but
what an
sandwich.
Needed to express my dismay.
So I've met Remco. Every time he's broken his collarbone, I'm the one who's operated on him, and Eddie Merckx and Wout van Aert.
All right. Well, there you go. So now, I feel like we know a little bit more about our two protagonists here. One is actually just a dad headed to a triathlon, and the other, a deeply disrespectful young man.
Yeah. One is the beacon of humanity, and the other, you shouldn't let your kids watch Pogačar, watch him on TV at the Tour this year because he's a bad influence.
I do think that a little, to bring this back, but I feel like Unchained, we might get a little bit of that. I think they might tip in that direction where it's like.
Well, you say that, but then when they're showing like the UAE riders on a helipad and like UAE officials and all that stuff, it feels like they're kind of getting on board with doing the sports washing for him, being like, look how glam and amazing
I feel like
the UAE is.
I guess it's all just from a trailer, so who the hell knows? But like my vibe from that was like, these are the bad guys, kind of like all this money. They have all this money, and they're going to take our sport away. And
I think that's definitely the vibe. I think that's definitely the vibe.
If you stick a camera on a French guy whose team doesn't win anything, that's what he's going to tell you, and they're gonna do that. Right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. If you ask Mark Matteo if we should root for Tadej Pogačar, the answer is going to be no.
Every time Mark Matteo sees a kid at the side of the road at the Tour de France with a oversized UAE jersey on, just a tear rolls down his cheek. It's just talking about the horseshoe theory. He's there also saying like, my country is lost.
Yep.
Yeah.
Game's gone.
Today's been a weird show, and I think that's because we're at the low ebb, our post Giro pre Dauphiné Tour. I've just figured out in my head why today's felt a bit weird.
I enjoyed it.
Maybe it hasn't.
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's been a bit meandering.
I had a great time. I think our Dauphiné preview was less of a preview and more of an overview.
Bit of a name and guise situation.
Well, that's fine. Yeah. That's our plan for the escapecollective.com is to focus maybe more on the narratives than here's your every single stage, because I don't think you need that.
No.
Yeah, you could go to the Lanterne Rouge podcast for that, and we got to talk about them in After Dark today because they've been naughty.
I also think that this is frankly just the wrong medium for a massive preview. Because you need to be able to see things.
Well, you say that, but do you not remember when they had Primoz Roglic guessing stage profiles at the Giro?
That was very fun. That was very fun. That was very fun.
Everything is mad. Nothing.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up there. We're gonna head into After Dark, and we're gonna talk about the Little Black Book. And what was the other thing There's something else we were gonna mention.
Dave Brailsford. Got a couple of Trust Tree Dave Brailsford.
Trust Tree Dave Brailsford stuff. Of course. After Dark, it's just a continuation of this episode if you're listening to the member-only feed. It just keeps going. You get more pod. So, if you're not already a member, head to escapecollective.com/join. Sign up. If you are a member and you haven't figured out how to get the member feed, just Google Escape Collective member feed. It'll take you to a page that you can only access if you're logged in and you're signed up. And it'll explain how to do it. It's very easy. Just basically hit a link. You can add it to your Apple Podcast app. You can add it to anything but Spotify, because Spotify doesn't. It's not our fault. It's Spotify's fault. They don't let us do that. No.
Do you want to mention the membership program as well? Because that's been going down. Well.
Yeah, we've had a lot of folks reach out and say, "Hey, I'm very much enjoying using your member purchase program because I wanted to buy something, and I went on there, and there was a special price just for me, just because I'm a member. And oh, lo and behold, I got basically most of or the entirety of my membership back just by buying something I was going to buy anyway.
Yeah.
It's like genuinely
That's economics.
some great deals on there. Yeah,
The,
basic economics.
People who've listened to more than one episode may remember mine/our fascination with the expensive Silka pumps.
The $500 Silka pump.
I
Yeah.
forgot to, the $500 Silka pump. I forgot to bring this up earlier, but we've heard from someone who owns one of them.
Oh,
So Joe
does this person
D'Antoni,
like it? Oh, yeah.
Who was on the member trip last year.
Yep.
Didn't pay $500. They pointed out. I think they got it in a deal, so it was like $200 to $300, whatever. But as we've always said, spend your money how you want, don't you know? Who are we to judge? You're spending money on us. Joey sent in a message saying, "So I have the $500 Silk pump. I got it during some big sale. Here's the main difference from cheaper pumps. His place isn't huge, and his main bike lives in the living room. And as pumps go, it's an attractive piece of furniture (brackets rosewood handle). And Kelly, who I presume is his partner, doesn't complain about it being in the living room. So that is a
There
good
you go.
USP. Also, respect to Kelly for letting a bike be in the living room, I have to say.
I used to live in a 500 square foot condo, which is very small, and we had like 6 bikes inside there. It gets full.
6.
Yeah, it gets full quickly. Gets full very quickly. So yeah,
There we have
Silka
it.
is in the member purchase program. So is Velocio. So is Mavic. So I can't list all of them off the top of my head right now. And actually, I know that Andy has been adding new ones all the time. So go check that out. Check out the member purchase program. Buy some stuff. Get a deal. Good for you. All right, let's head into After Dark. Otherwise, we'll see you on Monday.